Hey guys, I haven't done some stories in a while, so I was sent some stories or experiences. If you have one, spookynews@yahoo.com, SPOOKYNEWS@yahoo.com. Send them to me or DM them. This one is called The Janitor in the Black Pond. And I can't prove any of these are true, but this is like a safe space. Totally believe these people. I'm a third shift janitor at a chemical plant. Nights are easy, fluorescent hum, empty hallways, and the slow hiss from the boilers. I smoke. The habit has me stepping out back by the retention pond where the water still is black and oily and nobody fishes. Nobody swims, and we all know why, but we don't talk about it. First night I heard splashing like someone walking through soup. It was deliberate, not like a raccoon, not a deer, heavy 2x2 slaps on the mud. When I leaned over the fence, my cigarette glow caught something moving. It wasn't fast, it was wrong. Limbs like a man, but long, knees bending like an animal's. It stopped and the water around it bubbled like a mouth. The next morning I found feathers, but not from any bird I knew. They were black and iridescent, slick like tar, and they had teeth marks. Then bones, a cat maybe, except the rib cage had been split down the middle and the innards were shredded, eaten but not chewed, ripped and flung back into the weeds. The police called it animal predation. The company called it a nuisance. My gut called it something else. It got bolder. The prints in the bank, long, narrow, five-toed, but with an extra knuckle near the heel, like each step was made for gripping wet wood. Sometimes I'd look up and the sodium lights would show a patch of fur, upright, slick with pond water. Once it stood on a drift of plastic and straightened its shoulders like a man taking a breath. You could see its jaw flex under the slick skin. Twice it almost had me. The first time I heard a breath behind me and turned, but nothing was there. The second, I was locking the storeroom and I saw a smear of something on the glass, a paw print that stretched impossibly thin when I blinked. I left the plant that night with my shirt soaked in sweat and cigarette ash in my hair. People joke that chemicals do things. They say mutations like a rumor, but I found a piece of fur caught on a pallet, gray with veins and shimmered green under warehouse lights, like algae trapped in hair. When I took it home and stuck it between newspapers, the fur dried and curled and smelled like metal. I told myself to quit. I told myself to stop going outside, but curiosity is a different kind of addiction. The next night, I stood at the dock until dawn and watched it come out the black water. Taller than a man, dripping, and for a second it looked like a face I half remembered from a dream. Huge eyes, no whites, just glossy orbs reflecting from my lighter. It cocked its head. I dropped the light, and when I looked back through the door, the indent in the mud where I stood was there, and the second set of prints leading from the pond straight to the building's shadow, stopping 5 paces short of the door. Nothing in this town fishes in that pond anymore. But sometimes late at night, when the loading doors slide open, you can see 2 long shapes moving at the water's edge, waiting for whoever forgets to lock the gate. The second story is from a family. They labeled it Dogmen at the Edge of the Yard, and it's set in northern Michigan. We moved here for quiet. Now the quiet has teeth. My kid Macy was 9 when she started saying there was something in the woods. At first, my husband and I laughed. Pets make noises, nighttime makes shadows, but then the dog vanished. One morning, the kennel was open and our lab Hank was gone. No howls, no prints near the gate. Just a latch pulled open like someone with long fingers waited the time to be easy. We found shredded grass rings inside the woods like something had been setting and cleaning itself. The animal control guy found half a raccoon picked clean and left on a stump, torn fur in clumps and claw marks that ran up the trunk as high as my husband's chest. He said coyotes. I said I seen taller prints, long and narrow, spaced like a human running. At night, the cameras caught things, not clear, just frames of motion, a tall torso moving between trees, the night IR turning fur into white blurs. One frame showed a hand long, the nails curved into hook points, pressing against a motion cam. Another shows a shadow at the end of our lawn, head cocked as if listening to our baby monitor. My wife came in one night with scratches up her forearms. She had gone out to the porch to smoke and something had knocked her down on the driveway. She tasted copper and felt fur against her cheek. When she came back, muddy prints were stretched from the tree line to her shoes and then back, like it had walked her home and measured our windows. We started finding backyard things in the woods, a lawn chair, a child's bike, socks, stuff from our garage piled like trophies, a candlestick, a dog bowl, our garden gnome with its head off and its eyes gouged out. We put up lights and motion sensors. We called the sheriff. They said they'd check it out, but everyone had their jokes and was busy with work. The local forum blamed kids. The feed filled with guys saying we were making up monsters. Trail cams finally gave us a face to hate. One night, the camera that was set at the tree line caught something upright, covered in fur. shoulders hunched, eyes reflecting pale green. It walked straight to the camera and sniffed it. The head looked wrong, too long, the snout flattened, and the ears were human-shaped but furred. It turned its face to the tree and opened its mouth. There, a shot where it was right up close and you could see the teeth like long gaps, like someone lost half their molars and the rest are filed sharp. We hung a note on our feed. If anyone knows what this is, tell us. We need help. Comments came in. Hunters with old stories about dogmen in the pines. A woman who swore her aunt lost her sheep to something like this. Someone suggested calling a trapper. Someone else suggested sprinkling salt and hanging garlic like witches. It's still going on. We put up more cameras, and every morning there's more stuff missing. Now Macy sleeps with the light on and draws pictures of the thing at the tree line. We wake to new prints and to the howl that starts after midnight and moves like a chorus from the woods to the yard. Close enough that you can hear breath through the screen. If you've ever heard something howling right at your window and felt like the sound reached under your ribcage, you'll understand why we don't laugh anymore. And if you've got any suggestions, please keep this thing from learning our porch steps. Please comment. We're running out of ideas, and even scarier, we're running out of time. So if anybody has any ideas, feel free to comment. They're going to be listed, and they will be reading the comments. So this one is from a friend of mine who went to Chernobyl, and she had came back, and I asked her to write a story for me about her experience because it was so creepy. So she wrote, "We flew with the tour group because morbid curiosity is cheap and nostalgia sells tickets. They gave us a pamphlet with rules printed in red. No one goes outside after dark. No windows open past dusk. All cameras surrendered at check-in and quiet between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. These were not suggestions. These were laws. The resort was a concrete maze of corridors and heavy curtains. Guards with rifles paced the perimeter like a zoo that kept everyone safe from the exhibits. For the first 2 days, it felt like being inside a museum diorama. Rusted amusement parks, a kindergarten frozen in noon hour of toys, a Ferris wheel with one seat still twisted in the sky. On the third night, the rules started to feel less absurd and more like sheltering someone from us. A tour guide told us off the record, you don't make a noise. You don't draw attention. Someone asked why, and he said at night the thing that moves in the exclusion zone doesn't like light, it learns faces. People laughed until blackout vines were drawn and metal doors were locked. The guards checked everyone's rooms and bolted the corridors with keys they kept on their belts. The first night I wondered if it was all for protection theater for gullible tourists. The second night I learned otherwise. At 2:13 a.m. I woke up to a sound through the concrete, a dragging, like something pulling itself across the roof tiles. It sounded patient, like someone reading a list outside your window. A guest tried to crack the blind, and within seconds, a guard's silhouette filled the doorway, and a whisper with a flooded light, "No window now." The woman's teeth chattered, and she backed away like a child told not to touch the stove. That night, someone's camera, their phone left charging on the windowsill, blinked and died. In the morning, its battery was iron cold. On the screen was a photo taken in the dark, a smear across the glass, long and wet, like someone had breathed directly on it and left the shape of a face pressed inside, like eyes crossed like black holes. We learned the worst rule last. If someone taps at your window after dusk, you pretend it's not there. If you look, it remembers. One couple in our group didn't follow that rule. They heard something in the balcony, a soft rhythmic tapping. He opened the door because he was brave or stupid. The hotel released them the next day without refund. They refused to speak about why they left. By the third night, the corridors hummed with the tension you could cut with your teeth. We whispered stories into our pillows, and I dreamt of hands sliding under the doors, fingers with claws that tasted like ash. The guards began to check corners with flashlights that had a dull green beam. They carried it like a relic that stung the eyes of whatever waited outside. When I left, I looked back at the hotel windows and saw that the curtains had been shredded from the outside, like something had tried to get in and finally given up. The guide told us as we boarded the bus, some rules exist for remembrance, some rules exist because the thing learned once. So no one laughed. Nobody wanted to know what might have followed the bus down the road. And I have one more, but we don't have enough time, so I'll have to record that later. spookynews@yahoo.com. Please comment. Love you guys.